Hi, I'm Becky Hunt, and I am on a life mission to help other women going through trials reclaim their joy. I'm a mother of 3, and I understand pain and loss firsthand. I survived melanoma cancer, type 1 diabetes, Graves' disease, and several eating disorders, but the most difficult thing that I've survived is the loss of one of my daughters at only 82 days old. No one should have to carry the unbearable weight of child loss alone, which is how I came to be on this journey to unite women through their pain, forming a community of feminine strength that together can face all obstacles. Hey friends, so today is going to be very raw, very vulnerable. I'm going to tell you where I'm at. I've got Kleenexes in my lap. I have already a pile of about 10 that I've already used today, and I just feel like I need to talk about what's going on. So if you've listened to my past podcasts, I told you my story. I told you the story of my daughter Gracie and how she was born with a congenital heart defect in 2012. And she passed away October 23rd, 2012. So she lived August 2nd to October 23rd, 82 days. What I didn't touch on in my story was the funeral and what it's like to plan a funeral for your child and what that experience is like, but also what that experience is like 10 years later. Okay? I did a thing that I have been avoiding for the past 10 years. I watched the video of my daughter's funeral today on October 11th, 2012. Wait, that's not right. 2022. It's been 10 years. It feels like it was yesterday. Today has been quite the day. I'm not going to tell you about everything that went on today, but I will tell you that it's been an emotional one. It's been one where I have dug into my Bible a lot. And I've made a Target trip, bought 2 bottles of wine, went to Panera, and bought myself a bread bowl. It was amazing, and I have yet to crack open a wine bottle, which maybe I should do that right now. This is just what it's like to go through a day that's heavily surrounded by grief. It's like the theme of the day for me. And I don't have many days like this anymore where my grief, sadness, anger, everything is just coming out, like literally bleeding out of me and pouring out of me. I don't have many of these days anymore, 10 years later. But you know what this feels like when I do? It feels like I am grieving all over again. It feels like I'm restarting back on day 1. The day we lost her. The day she went to heaven. And it's heavy. It is hard. There's a lot of moments of numbness and moments of anger, moments of sadness, and moments where you literally scream. Like I screamed today. I screamed in my own house as loud as I could, and then I cried. And at one point today, when I was eating my bread bowl on my deck outside on this beautiful autumn day, I sat and I thought to myself, what do I need to do today to take care of my grief? Like, what do I need right now that is just like that I can like just lay in my grief? You know what I mean? Like, just sit in it. Because I don't do that enough. I don't do that often enough. And I found the DVD that our church filmed of my daughter's funeral. And I took out our DVD player. It wasn't connected, so I had to like figure out how to put the connect. I mean, I'm an audio engineer. That's what I went to school for. But sometimes I still like, am I plugging this in? The white goes in here, and the red goes in here, and the blue goes in here, and the green goes in here. And anyway, I did figure it out, and then the DVD remote didn't work, and then I was like, what the heck? And all it needed was new batteries. But I was frustrated about it. I was very frustrated about it. And so I pressed play. I remember the day so well when I see the picture come up on my TV. I remember family. I remember the church was almost full of people that I've met throughout my life, people from high school that I don't even talk to anymore, and people from my old work, people from, my middle school days, and just so many people came, and I can't even remember. I wish I could. If they didn't sign the guest book at the funeral, there is probably no chance that I would remember that they were there. And that is not because I don't want to. It's because we kind of are going through the motions on the funeral day and just surviving through it. I remember as we entered the sanctuary, I was holding my daughter in my hand, in one single hand. We decided to cremate her because we wanted her to be free. We wanted her to sprinkle her in a very special place so that she could just be free, because she never left the four walls of her hospital room unless she was going to surgery. So I was holding her in a little box in my one single hand and a flower in the other, and I walked her down the aisle next to my husband and placed her on a table and sat down in a seat in front of the sanctuary. And let me tell you that the day we left the hospital without her, October 23rd, I remember leaving the hospital. I don't remember the drive to my parents' house where we were going. I do remember getting to my parents' house and going up to my parents' bedroom and laying on their bed and closing the door. We had many guests at the house. There were a lot of family there. And I closed myself in my mother's room. My husband, Sean, was with me. And we cried and we held each other in our bed for I don't know how long. We cried and we held each other in that bed for so long. And I remember when I could finally take a breath of air after crying for so long and feeling like my tears ran out. My tears ran dry. There was none left. We went down and joined our families, and I remember there was laughing, and there was conversation, and there was food, and I was just mad. I was just mad at it all, that people were laughing and smiling, and I was just mad about it. Because nobody else was crying. Nobody else was visibly, grieving as much as I was. And I remember being mad. I love my family so much. So I feel bad for saying this, but that's honestly how I felt. That night, we had stayed at my parents' house because we didn't want to go home. We didn't want to go home. It was too hard to drive all the way home. And so we stayed at my parents' house, and I planned a funeral that night because I could not sleep. I couldn't sleep a wink. And I remember sitting on the couch in my parents' family room, and I was writing. I was writing all the songs that I sang to Gracie in her life. I circled my favorite ones. I wrote out how I imagined the funeral would go, who would speak, what verses from the Bible would be spoken, and I planned a funeral. The night after my daughter died, I planned her funeral. And the next day we went to church, and our church headquarters. I had my notes. I had written a paragraph for every single song that I wanted to be played. I wrote about why I chose the song and what it meant to me and why it meant so much. And I handed it all over to the pastor and said, this is how I want her funeral to be. And we requested our favorite musician, Josh Decker, and he did a phenomenal job. I cannot say enough amazing things about that man and how he sang that day. He showed up. He sang strong. He sang with passion. He sang with his heart that day. And I am so thankful for him. And I'm thankful for Pastor Tawny, who had the most amazing and perfect words that just brought peace over the entire congregation. And I watched the funeral back today for the first time. And I know that many people would look at me like I'm crazy and think, why would you do that on an already hard day, emotional day? Why would you decide to put your daughter's funeral in the DVD player and watch it? I've wanted to do this for years. I've wanted to feel brave enough to do it. I've wanted to hear all the songs again. I've wanted to hear all the messages again. I wanted to see the people. I wanted to see the setting. I wanted to see the stage. I wanted to see the video we created of all of her pictures and videos, and hear the songs that make me think of her most. And I felt like I was there again, and I remembered there was this one song. You probably know it if you're a Christian, the song Healer. I suppose I can sing a little for you. But I sing this song to Gracie every day, and you hold my every moment. You calm my raging seas. You walk with me through fire and heal all my disease. I trust in you. Oh, I trust in you. I believe you're my healer. I believe you are all I need. Anyway, that's just a little bit. That song was Gracie's song. I sang it to her every day, like I said. And when we sang it at the funeral, I remember we were all standing at the time singing, and I decided to leave my seat, and I stood in front of the table where her remains were. And I stared and looked at her picture, and I imagined I was singing to her one last time. And I raised my hands and I sang out so strong. I watched it back today, remembering that is what I did. And I watched myself stand and walk toward the table and stand in front of the table and raise my hands. And it just took me back to that day. And there was peace over that place. There was sadness surrounding that place. There was beautiful music. And I feel like the funeral is always one of the hardest things that we have to go through as bereaved parents, to throw our child a funeral. But I also believe now that it was a step that needed to be taken in order to start healing. And now that I can go back and watch this and think that and believe that that was my first step in healing, like I've realized that I've come a long way in 10 years. I've realized that I am freaking strong and brave, and I've learned that I have to be in order to keep living and to keep going. You know how I started this podcast talking about some things that went on this morning that just kind of set me down a deep, dark hole of grief? Today, I closed a chapter that I've been fighting so hard against for so many years. And maybe I will share that in another podcast at some point. I know for sure I am going to be talking about it in my memoir that I'm writing. I had this moment this morning where I just kind of fell apart and all, you know what, broke loose. And you know what I did? I opened my Bible in my lap. I was actually sitting on the bathroom floor, and I grabbed my Bible and I flipped it open to a very, very random page, like the most random page, like literally like flip, 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 stop. I came to these verses that literally, like, I asked God sitting down, I asked him to speak to me. I asked him to there was a decision that needed to be made, and I wanted his help. I asked him to be clear as day. Like, just please be clear and blunt with me today, because I need to make this decision today. And the page that I opened to is exactly like I got it. I instantly started crying, and it instantly made sense, all of it. And I knew what I had to do. And I just want to read a little bit of it to you. And even though I'm not giving you like the full story here, I'm not ready to share completely like what happened today. I know that it's like really annoying to hear, to not be let in, but I think I need more time to process it. I just want to read a little portion of it to you. And I've been working on this, writing this memoir about my life and my struggles. And obviously Gracie's life is kind of the center point of the book. And I love to write. I love to put into words what I'm feeling and experiencing. And I believe that my story is meant to be heard. That's my purpose. And so this is what I came upon this morning. So it starts in Matthew 13 at verse 11. a disciples asked Jesus, "Why do you tell stories?" And Jesus replied, "You've been given insight into God's kingdom. You know how it works. Not everybody has this gift, this insight. It hasn't been given to them. Whenever someone has a ready heart for this, the insights and understandings flow freely. That's why I tell stories, to create readiness, to nudge the people toward receptive insight." And going down a bit further, this just stuck out to me. And I was like, this is it. This is me. This is me. This is what God is telling me. But you have God-blessed eyes. Eyes that see! Exclamation point. And God-blessed ears that hear. A lot of people, prophets and humble believers among them, would have given anything to see what you are seeing, Becky. To hear what you are hearing, Becky, but never had the chance. I've had this crazy story. I've had this crazy life. I lost my daughter in 2012. She was 82 days old and she was born with a broken heart. In 2015, I was diagnosed with stage 3 melanoma cancer. And I went through 2 years of treatment. I had several surgeries to remove the tumor and lymph nodes. And now I'm left with a bum arm. I have type 1 diabetes. I have been told that I can't have any more babies, even though I pushed against that one and I rebelled and had one anyway. And then just 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with Graves' disease. And now I'm dealing with a chronic pain in my toe and chronic pain in my shoulder for the past 10 months. And I've taken 2 cortisone shots. I've taken oral steroids. I've gone through several months of physical therapy, and they let me go, saying, "Hey, I don't really know what else to do for you. Maybe you should just go back to your doctor and get another shot." And that's discouraging. I've had a lot of these things thrown at me throughout my life, and especially in my adult life. And it seems like one thing happens and then it's okay for a while, and there's a moment of rest. But then something else happens, and then a little rest time, and then another thing happens, and there's this cycle that just keeps on going, and I just keep on getting hit with these things, and I feel like this victim. After reading this today, like, am I the victim? Or am I just this person who has God-blessed eyes? Eyes that see, and God-blessed ears that hear. And I'm this person who sees all these things differently now because of what I've experienced. And I live my life differently. I see God differently. I go about my life differently. I deal with crap differently. And through all this hurt and pain, I still find joy at the end of the day. And I think that's really important for people to hear, that there is hope, there is joy, and God put this pain and hurt and grief on my life for a reason. And that reason, I believe fully, 100%, especially after reading this today, that this is my purpose. This is my next season, is writing this book, publishing this book. Maybe even if my dreams do come true, getting to speak in front of thousands and thousands of people about my story and hopefully changing their lives in some way and bringing them closer to Jesus. And that's what I pray over this book as I as I write and experience the things I need to experience. Today, God told me to close the doors and release my story into the world. To close the doors on one chapter and walk straight on through to this next one. That's hard. That's hard. Giving up something that means so much to you and you've worked so hard for, and it somehow feels like your identity in some ways. And I'm realizing right now, just talking about it, that just like my eating disorders, I had control over this thing. I had control. And when I don't have control, I lose my shiznit. And things feel like they fall apart. And I crumble and my emotions go haywire and I scream and I fall apart again and again and again. And now that I have closed this door and I don't have control over this one thing anymore, and I've given it to God, and I'm trusting God, I'm following what He's asking me to do, I'm realizing that it was just another control issue. And the more and more control I let go of, the more and more I open up this space to feel things. And it's scary opening that up. It's so dang scary. And it's dark and there's so much unknown. And I guess my message here is that if you're going through a deep, dark time, if it's somebody that you've lost, you're grieving hard, maybe you're preparing to go to a funeral, maybe you just went to a funeral and you're having a really hard time with grief and just getting up from bed every day, I challenge you to open your Bible. Pray over what your struggle is today. Why can't you get out of bed? Tell God what that is. Just say straight up, hey, Jesus, I am struggling so hard with this. Can you give me a clear answer to what I should do, to what decision I should make, to what I need to see, what I need to hear today? Will you just show me right now? Open up your Bible, go to a random page, and just start reading the first sentence, first words that your eyes lay on. And I hope and I would trust that God would show you and speak to you on that page. And I tell you, every single time that I have done this, just open up my Bible to a random page. I've done this more than once. And every single time, God has answered. Maybe not in a way that I planned for myself, that I expected. Not ever is it the way I expected. But I'm sitting here now. I went through this day. It was hard. I experienced a lot. I'm actually feeling very exhausted today, right now in this moment, and I'm ready to open a bottle of that wine, and maybe take a nap. But I have to tell you that there's peace over my chest. Like, I woke up and I wanted to throw up this morning. I was so anxious. And that anxiety has shifted. A little bit of it has dissipated, and I'm starting to feel peace over it. Thank you, Jesus, for that. And thank you for listening. I hope this wasn't too confusing without giving you all the details of what is going on in my personal life right now, but I will share them whether it's in another podcast or YouTube video or just in my memoir. I have so many secrets to share with you in my memoir, and I can't write it fast enough. But thank you for listening, and please share this podcast with somebody that you love, somebody you know is struggling with grief, with a heaviness. Please share that with them. Please share that with them. And I will talk to you in the next podcast.